Nerds, Tom here, talking to y'all about Marvel's Smash Up, or Smash Up Marvel, I don't know how they say it, but this is a standalone expansion to Smash Up. Now, I'm going to mostly talk about how this fares as a standalone expansion. I mean, I will talk a little bit about Smash Up in general, because we haven't reviewed that on our channel yet. I do overall like Smash Up a lot. I don't think I love it. I liked it a lot when I first played it many years ago. I've kind of been like intimidated by how many expansions there are, and there were like 2 different big boxes. But if you don't know what Smash Up is, at its core, it is a sort of like area control or majority control card game where there's tons of these bases out there that all have these breakpoints, and throughout the game, you're going to be playing cards from your hand that are either actions or minions. You get 1 action per turn and 1 minion per turn, or in this version, it's actually called character. And you play the characters on the bases, and each base has a breakpoint, and each character has a certain amount of power. And when all the power combined at that base, from all the players' characters, is equal to or greater than that breakpoint, the base will score, and points will be divvied out to whoever has the most power. So, like, if the breakpoint is 20 on the card, and I play a character that has 5 power, okay, well, 15 more power being played on that base by any players will cause the base to break. And when the base breaks, whichever one player has the highest total power at that base will get the high number of victory points, second place will get fewer, and so on. But the reason why it's called Smash Up is you will take 2 different decks of different themings. In the original Smash Up, they were very generic themings like dinosaurs and aliens and robots. And in here, there are obviously different teams from the Marvel Universe, including Avengers and not X-Men or Fantastic Four. And you take those 2 decks and you smash them together, and that is the deck that you play with for that game, which is both good and bad. There's a decent amount of balance issues with the game. It's very possible that you get a better combination than someone else or a worse combination than somebody else. And it's also possible that you draw not a lot of good cards. I have a bunch of actions in my hand and no characters, or vice versa. But usually the game will last long enough that you will draw through like most of your deck, so you should be able to at least see, good cards, right? You can have a couple of bad turns, and a lot of people can have a couple of bad turns, but overall you should be able to have at least a few really good turns. And you draft the decks that you pick at the beginning of the game, so there's a little bit of balance. So there's a little bit of balance built in there, but that does not mean it's a perfectly balanced game. There are certainly going to be games or turns and times in which there's just random imbalance, and there's not really anything you can do about it, and that's just the name of the game. But I do really like this version of the game, or at least the idea of this version. I mean, I like the Marvel theme, a lot. I was a big comic book fan growing up, but even if you don't care much for Marvel, they are coming out with a Disney edition, which I'm also, looking forward to trying out. But I like the idea of coming out with these expand-alone expansions, the ones where, like, it's just a second base game, right? Because, I mean, I guess you can still get a copy of base game Smash Up and not get any of the expansions. But the idea of it being so daunting, if you want to get all those other expansions, and here, I like the idea of there being like a second version, and I would like to see them come out with an expansion for this version, right, with Fantastic Four and X-Men and stuff. And I definitely think they can do that because these expansions are like cross-compatible, and they even have those little cards that I think, they don't really stand up in the box that you get them in, but I think that's for like the big box version of the game. The only potential negative with this format is something I can't really attest to, is I can't tell you if any of these decks are exactly like other decks that have come out. I mean, they seem pretty generic in their theming and like how they work, right? Like one deck is all about playing extra actions, one's about playing extra characters, one's about gaining victory points in other ways, one's about moving characters after they've already been at bases and things like that. One's about reducing the breakpoint of bases. So that definitely sounds like something that's been in previous Smash Up, but it's been a while since I've played Smash Up, and I certainly haven't played every single expansion. So I don't know, these could be like almost exact copies of other decks that there have been before, in which case, if you're a big Smash Up fan and you go to get this expansion just because you want to have everything, well, then maybe you might be a little bit disappointed. But at least there isn't anything hyper-specific to this expansion that would make it hard to mix in with other things. Like the Cthulhu expansion for Smash Up had these madness tokens, and you definitely needed everybody to have at least one Cthulhu deck in their, like one half deck, right? Because if only one player has something that can give out madness, it seems pretty imbalanced because other players would need to also be able to hand out madness or to get rid of madness or whatever. But overall, I really like this version of Smash Up. I think it's got its flaws, of course, but I mean, the game itself has a couple of little flaws. No game's perfect, but this is a really great way for people to get into the game now. If you don't want to feel the need to get a bunch of expansions and big boxes and stuff, and you just want like a small self-contained theming that you like, of course, if it's Disney or Marvel, I think I probably will just have the Marvel and or Disney, and I probably won't go and get the base game of Smash Up and all the other expansions, and that's probably what a lot of people are going to do. So if you're one of those people, there's going to be a link in the description box down below where you can get yourself a copy of Marvel Smash Up. Also down there is going to be a link for Game Toppers. They're the sponsor for Never Bored Gaming. And while you're down there, don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you'll never be bored.